This is a summary of chapter 11 of Lord of the Flies, and this is right after Simon's death. So as we all know, that he's passed away in chapter 9, and in chapter 10, none of the boys really want to talk about it and deal with his death. Piggy's specs get stolen, or are stolen also in chapter 10. So now we're at the place where Ralph's group is basically, dealing with being physically just abused and they dealt with a really bad fight at the end of chapter 10, really bloody fight. And poor Piggy can't see. Ralph is definitely kind of at his wit's end, and they decide to go and approach Castle Rock to confront Jack. And Jack comes back from hunting, and there's another beheaded dead sow on the floor. And we all know by this time that these boys are just killing creatures for no reason at this point. Jack and Ralph get into a spear fight, and they slightly injure one another. Jack asks the boys to tie up Sam and Eric, and Piggy tries to blow the conch to reinstate order. So be aware that this chapter, is another sad, brutal chapter, which just shows the horrors of what a human can do when we really turn to darkness. So as Piggy tries to blow the conch to bring in order, to stop the boys from being just complete savages, Roger finds a huge boulder at the top of the mountain, and he pushes it down and pushes it over right onto Piggy. And he dies a gruesome death. And I want to pause here because this isn't something to laugh about. This isn't something to make jokes. This is a real thing that happens in our lives of people being hurt through words and cruel actions, through bullying. And I know it would never get to this extent, but if we don't choose to make changes now, even though it may be just a small word or a small comment you make on social media that may be unloving, it still can cause ripple effects that we don't even see, that can lead to death later on. So the crazy thing is Jack is not even impacted by this gruesome death, but instead he makes Piggy's death prove his point, like he deserved that. Jack doesn't see any reason why that's that Piggy's death was wrong at all. Jack stabs Ralph with his spear, and all the hunters begin to try to get Ralph. Ralph escapes into the forest, and Jack demands that Sam and Eric join their group. But they try to resist. At the end of this chapter, it ends with yelling ceased, and Sam and Eric lay looking up in a quiet terror. Roger advanced upon them as one wielding a nameless authority. So we can infer that Roger does torture them or hurt them to get them to cooperate. This chapter is important because when you live consistently a life of selfishness, anger, and rage, it does become difficult to serve and love others selflessly. You become calloused and don't even know it. Like I said, this isn't a chapter to take lightly. I do want you to sit with this fact that human beings are capable of killing and murdering, and not just through our actions, but through our words. So as we dig deeper into bullying and creating an anti-bullying campaign, keep this in mind as you read this chapter.